Gonna need a gap filler. Gonna need a puddle sucker too. Might also need a Jenny.
And another Sanger.
Whatever you need, Coates Hire has a million pieces of equipment. Call 13 15 52.
Well, it's a long way from just about everywhere, but it's not far from absolutely perfect. This is the 7th year we've come to Hidden Valley, and it's never lost its ability to surprise us. The action so far this weekend has reflected the nature of the Northern Territory itself. Rich, diverse, exciting, and full of wildlife. Mark Skaife certainly feels like an endangered species after what he's been through, and perhaps Marcos Ambrose has been acting the crocodile here so far this weekend. There's been lots happening as we welcome you to pit lane, and a very big crowd for Sunday. And this is what's ahead of us for round 4. Races 2 and 3, 100 kilometres, 35 laps, 75% of the distance is 27 laps, and the pit stop window is 4 tyres between 2 and 24. Weather forecast is fine, mostly sunny as you'd expect this time of year up here. A top of 33 degrees, which the locals tell me is cool. And you're looking now at not only the positions for that race, of course, but the front row for today, at least for race 2, Ingle and Kelly. So the teammates of those respective protagonists will be beside each other. Marcos Ambrose did manage to recover strongly, but while Russell Ingle capitalised on a change of luck, the bad luck has continued for Mark Skaife. He's much further down the order, as we'll see in just a moment. There he is, 14th after that, just in front of Garth Tander, right behind Greg Murphy, who we'll talk to very shortly because he's had a rough weekend as well. Craig Lowndes likewise.
Hidden Valley Raceway, the Northern Territory, 2.8 kilometres anti-clockwise, 150k average speed. And you can see the unusual layout of it, the big, long, fast straight, 1 kilometre in length. They use the 3.5 diff here for a top speed of just under 270 k's. A long left-hander at turn 1 for third gear, great S's at 2 and 3. The hard right-hander at 4, up into the Valley 5 at just 65 k's. A series of bumps between 7 and 8 that really test the setup of the car. More bumps down at 9 and 10, and then the drag strip straight again. On board with Stephen Richards for Perkins Motorsport and Castrol. Deep, hard braking into turn 1 from 6th gear back to either 2nd or 3rd, depending on individual driver and team preference. About 90 k's across the face of the corner. 3rd, 4th, briefly 5th gear. Huge bumps here on the approach to 4. It's a great ride in this spot. 2nd gear. 95 k's across the apex. Back up to 155 odd k's and down to the hard left-hander. 2nd gear, slowest corner on the track. Just over 60 k's. Right at the bottom of the rev range, 2nd, 3rd gear for turn 6. There's a camber change there. The car's nearly always oversteer. Here are the bumps. Richo's car working beautifully across them. 3rd gear, turn 8. Series of little S's here that take you down to the final corner. It's critical to get the throttle on early and get the smoothest possible run. 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's hard on the right rear tyre, but it's a great little racetrack. Hidden Valley with Stephen Richards.
We're moving on now as we see something's happened to one of the Triple Eight cars on the way around. Maxie Wilson's had some problems there. We also know the Cirame car has been in the pits for some last-minute repairs, alternator belt, we understand. So there's a lot happening here as we quickly give you the grid. Russell Ingles sneaking through with a change of luck, and Todd Kelly alongside him to exact revenge for the Holden Racing team. That'll be something to look out for. And I mentioned before the break, Marcos Ambrose coming out of pit lane was practicing his start. So I think he's trying to make an impact too. Very hard to fight for position here unless the guy in front of you makes an error. Richards and Kelly on row 3 ahead of Mark Guana, who's had a pretty solid weekend so far, staying out of trouble, and look where it's got him. Paul Radicic and Max Wilson on row 5, but I don't think Max Wilson will be there as he comes into the pits, Neil.
Looks suspiciously as though there's been some kind of a failure under the front left of that car. There's no panel damage obvious to us, so something else has failed on the warm-up lap. Quite extraordinary set of circumstances for Max Wilson as the team now try and determine whether they can rectify it. Obviously has to start from the pit lane if they can sort it out, but that some number of minutes involved in fixing a problem like that.
Running down through the field, Paul Dumbrell starting from the back of the grid after being adjudged the aggressor when Brad Jones was punted off yesterday in the race. So that's his problem. Russell Ingall and Todd Kelly together on the front row. And right behind them, pushing hard, is Jason Bright with Marcos Ambrose tight on the inside and fishtailing there. In fact, contact between the teammates.
Marcos has hit his own teammate. Marcos has nailed Ingall on the way into turn one. He had the rear brakes locked and he got into the B pillar and whacked it. And that is quite bizarre. He was completely to the left of the road. Bright's got huge front right damage on his car. And on the dirty side of the road, Ambrose didn't have enough grip available on cold tyres, and that not only creates a frustration within his own team as they sit there and scratch their heads, but it might mean that race control has to determine a penalty against one teammate against another.
Well, either Murphy or Kelly had a little off further back a few corners ago. Don't think it was a major problem. He may have not have even lost track position. Bright is battling on. There is also smoke coming out of the back of Murphy's car. That might have been as a result of coming off the circuit. I just caught it in the top right-hand corner of the screen, but probably not a major problem. Might have been a lock-up.
He's saying he got squeezed by Bright, got onto the dirty line. Please apologise to Russell for me. So that is not the way Russell Ingall needed to start his race, nor Marcos Ambrose. And Brighty at the moment is continuing. He's got a lot of damage and it's rubbing on the tyre. And he'll be hoping, and the team with their fingers crossed, that it doesn't actually pop that control Dunlop. The fastest lap on the standing lap, obviously Marcos Ambrose with an 18.1, actually quite a bit slower than yesterday's standing lap time. And Ambrose opening up a margin of 1.1 seconds. Here's the replay from Marcos Ambrose's car. Todd Kelly to the right, Russell Ingall immediately in front. And so those two absolutely side by side on the run. Here's Brighty, is the one that's being credited with the squeeze. So Bright does actually move in. And Ambrose braked very late. And, you know, I'm not sure that I could say that Jason Bright's altogether at fault for that one.
Well, there's no doubt that Brighty coming across, and there's no doubt he did, still didn't prevent Marcos from braking earlier.
Actually, here's a better view of it. No, Marcos has done this on his own. Wow. I reckon Jimmy Stone grow an extra grey hair or two for that one.
But he's got the lead.
Certainly he was forced to the inside because of Jason's initial move to have a look there. But Marcos was extremely late on the brakes. And he saw an opportunity that he might have been able to sneak up, and it didn't work. Yesterday it worked for him, today it didn't.
Bright is fighting a very, very brave battle here. A little bit of damage on the front right. Not sure how much it's affected the tyre, but he's certainly holding up Todd Kelly.
Remember, this is also a compulsory pit stop race, Billy, so the pit stop window will open shortly. They can come in, and most of them are putting on the smartest set of tyres. The fastest lap so far, Marcos Ambrose with a 10.9. 1.4 second margin over Jason Bright. And that team will do their best to reef that guard off the tyre. Remember, they'll put a fresh set of boots on the car.
I know, mate. We're just monitoring it. Look, the rubbing's coming and going, but it still feels straight, doesn't it?
Stevie Richards is taking the opportunity to get away from that situation where he's clogged up. Kelly runs with him. Probably a good move from Stevie Richards. He's being held up, and this gives him the opportunity to get released from that situation. 10.8 for Marcos Ambrose last lap, 1.8 second margin. Heap of cars coming in, including Russell Ingall.
Marcos apologised to him. He got served up for Bright, so...
Well, the pit crew obviously trying to cool Russell down there as well, because there'll be a lot of things going through his mind at the moment. Richo there exiting pit lane very quickly. Russell's in for his stop. Darryl.
Yes, Russell in for the stop. They actually not put in a new set of tyres on this car. It's hard to determine what they are. Brad Jones up the inside of him. They're going to go together. Now Russell's having to give way to Brad Jones on the exit of pit lane, and also Rick Kelly jumped Stephen Richards in the pit stop as well.
This was absolute artwork down here. Then Greg Murphy came in behind Stephen Richards but got out ahead of him. That's the crucial thing that's happened in that string of stops.
Stephen Johnson out on the circuit. He had a tough day yesterday, dropped a cylinder in race 1 and so dropped a lot of ground. This is Rick Kelly out on the circuit in front of Stephen Richards. Good stop from Kmart Racing.
Continues to make more pace. He's done a 10.5 on the last lap, and Kelly now sweating on the back of Jason Bright. There's a lot of damage on the front right corner of that car, and that'll be having a small impact on the aero. He runs it wide on the exit of 1, but it doesn't put Todd in a particularly good spot as they come up here to this next. Oh, he squeezed through.
It's exactly what he did yesterday in a similar situation.
Good move.
He must like that bit of circuit, Neil. He feels like he's got plenty of grip there and he can hold on for later. Craig Lowndes exits pit lane now. It's been a battle for him yet again this weekend.
Kelly was the fastest man in this morning's warm-up. He did a 9.5 from Jason Bright. These two are battling. Let's go back to pit lane, Greg Rust.
Neil, just very quickly, some very slick stops being executed by the Kmart race team. Then Rick Kelly filed in behind Craig Lowndes, but he managed to get out ahead of him.
We'll find Ambrose comes in on the next lap.
So it's Ambrose, Bright, Todd Kelly, Jason Barguana up to 4th, Joel Bow 5th, then Radicic, Winterbottom, Tander, Scaife, Bright coming in.
Have to try and get the front guard off. I don't know whether it's still rubbing or not, but it's damage to the front tyre. Yeah, it looks like it stopped rubbing a little bit after a while. I think the mist has come off, so it should be easy enough.
It's going to cost them time, though, to get it off there. That's the problem. Rusty?
You can see the damage to the front right here, Neil. It'll be interesting to see if they decide to lose too much time. Okay, they're going to do it. They're going to attack it. In the meantime, Mark Scaife is in for a slick stop for his tyre change. He'll get out ahead. He's got some damage to the back end of car 2. Race tape now for Bright, and Bright is screaming, we've got to get back out there.
He's probably compelled to have this dealt with because otherwise...
We're going to have to take a bit of a gamble here. We're going to have to take a bit of a gamble here.
Well, there's not a lot of race distance to play with, is there?
That's murdered his chances in this motor race. You sit there for that long. Rick Kelly, meanwhile, has done a 10.2, fastest man on the racetrack so far, but he's still down in 20th position until the field shakes out. So I think they really had to deal with that, though, Billy, even though Jason wanted to get back out there. Here we go. Bright pulls over and takes position from Ambrose.
And Ambrose gives him a little nudge. Here I am.
That's correct. He's done a tyre stop and some repairs to his car, Marcus. He's come out on another set of tyres. He should be quite quick.
Marcus there wondering just what the value is of Jason being in front of him and blocking him, but there was the response from pit lane.
Once they warm up, that is the tyres on Bright's car, as they suggested on the radio, then he'll have reasonable pace provided he doesn't have any other geometry damage on the front corner of that car.
Jason Richards up ahead of them.
There's a replay of Marcus saying hello and welcome to Jason Bright, the apex of turn 1.
He's in an aggressive mood this weekend, young Marcus.
Yes, isn't he?
For a championship leader, and we keep harking back to the conservatism that a lot of people felt the point system would bring about, but as Neil said, once these guys get the helmets on, they just want to win races. A 110.
I was thinking about bringing you in, but see if he stops, we've decided to leave it for another lap. So we're going to pit this lap, Marcus. So go pit this lap, and you come out clean here.
There's the instruction from Stone Brothers crew, and I was just about to say that Russell Ingall has just put in the quickest lap of the race so far, a 1:10.1.
So Ambrose still the leader of the race. You heard the radio message as Kelly takes his service.
Paul Wheel pit stop there. So basically the back half of the field have made their stops. Todd Kelly in 15th position at the head of them, then Rick Kelly, Stephen Richards, Greg Murphy, Paul Wheel 19th, but these positions will change as they feed back into the race. Paul Radicic there just doing a bit of evasive action. as we ride with Marcos Ambrose.
We expect him in this lap. And their prediction on their computers in there is that after they service this car, assuming that it is efficient, they'll slot him back into clean air. 40 Ks.
Marcus, nice and steady on your marks, mate. Pull up nice and straight.
Marcos Ambrose into the pits. Just have a look at the front of that car from the incident in turn 1 at the start. Just a little bit of damage to the front bumper bar on the car. Wheel change. Good set of tyres going on. Just looking out on the track now, he departs. And you're right, Neil. He's got a very clear racetrack.
Remember, he had margin in those early laps. He put 3 seconds on them at one point, so he may not hang on here.
Okay, Marcus, Kelly's just got in front of you there.
So is Richards.
We're going to get a stop go for losing a wheel in the pit stop, mate.
So they must have had a problem in the rear there, describing losing a wheel. I thought that the efficiency of the guy on the front left was amazing. We had a great shot from that side. Amazing view of that front left, just getting yanked on and off so quickly, cleanly and efficiently.
Well, the pit window is 2 to 24, but for a relatively short race, this has been quite a variety in strategy that we're witnessing here. Bargwanna, Tander, Baird, Seaton, Noski, that's your top 5. Yet to come in for a stop.
Drive through, Marcus. Let's do it this lap. Do it this lap, Marcus.
Well, we've just heard from the pit. We're just hearing from the pits that there will be a drive-through for Marcos Ambrose, losing a wheel nut there in that change. Let's just see. And there it is, Marcos Ambrose, drive-through penalty. Well, this puts yet another complexion on this race. What next at Hidden Valley? We've had a lot of drama.
Been an amazing weekend.
Marcus, that's correct.
Well,
Get your position when I get out, mate, and just get up back to the right place. Yeah, will do.
takes him out of the game for this race and most probably the next, even though he's got good car speed. So small errors can really compound here. And he comes back out with Jason Bright.
This will be interesting. Well, these guys have had their share of problems, but they are arguably the quickest cars out there at the moment. The top 10 are yet to make their pit stop here. Garth Tander, race leader on the track. And a few guys who haven't seen a lot of daylight this weekend are seeing plenty at the moment. I'm talking about Baird, Seaton, Noski and company. But the man who's made the pit stop and is ahead of the others who have done the same is Rick Kelly. Here's another one in there, and this is Glenn Seaton, who was among the top cars, but very late making that stop. Craig Baird is now inherited the race lead. There's been a flood of stops. Stephen Ellery is in the pits. So it's Baird, Noski, Longhurst, Paul Morris and Simon Wills. They're your top 5, yet to make a stop. And Craig Baird has had a really interesting championship. He has fought very, very hard.
Race meeting this weekend in 6th position in the championship after some solid results, including that great wet weather call to go on slicks. Good gamble, risky, but it worked at Pukekohe.
He salvaged a lot. He's 7th now after yesterday's points haul. If you're looking at this series in terms of Formula 1 points or Champ Car points, Bairdo would be a long way back, but because of the system, it's actually helped him. And he's done very well with a team that's not carrying as much funding as plenty of others, and certainly doesn't have the benefit of 2 cars to work off each other. Noski is behind him, but Rick Kelly in 6th place is your effective leader. Tander's just made a stop.
Russell Ingles on the radio complaining that he's losing his brake pedal. So, pedal's going to the floor.
Give them a break for a lap, Rusty, see if they come back.
He may have dislodged one of the brake cooling ducts in the contact down at turn 1. Sometimes when you're in behind a bunch of cars like this, there's so much hot air exiting the back of the cars, and the temperature here is always hot. The ambient 34.5, track 38.5. It really punishes brakes, and you can, when you get to the bottom of the straight here, you find that brakes glaze very easily. You can end up with as much pressure as you can exert, and it's still not enough to pull the car up.
Tander, after putting a lot of pressure on Paul Wheel, gets around him. Winterbottom's behind them, and Ingle just leading it. Oh, he's off the circuit, Ingle. He left a gap between himself and Winterbottom.
He couldn't stop it.
And he's under attack now from Stephen Johnson. So Russell's in the wars after benefiting greatly from yesterday's touch-up between... And off the circuit further back there was one of the Castrol Perkins cars, was it? Dumbrell or Stephen Richards, I should say, and I think it was Dumbrell. It was. That's Paul Dumbrell there in car 8. So Ingle now is starting to hold up a few cars here. Just hearing the...
Right, do one more lap, and if it's no good, I'll talk to you again, all right?
So Russell in a bit of strife here. He might be coming in on the next lap. Johnson pressuring in, Glenn Seaton behind him, then Dumbrell. Let's hear from Greg Rust.
Disappointing race, Billy, for Max Wilson. What happened on that opening lap?
The left upright just broke down in the warm-up lap, and we are not too sure why. And now we were just warming. I was just warming the tires up, and the upright just broke down, and we couldn't fix it. So it was really a shame.
Frustrating, Max, particularly after New Zealand for you as well.
Yeah, I have been, having these kind of, problems, sort of often, which is a shame because the car has a good speed. The team's doing a great job. You're always among the top 10, and but because of those small things, you're avoiding to have a good results. But that happens. Let's do better the next one.
Good luck. Good run on the last race.
Thanks.
So a costly manufacturing or installation issue there on the upright component in the front left suspension on the 888 engineering car. Ingle is asking his team for an extra lap to assess these brakes. They've called him in to assess it because they don't want to lose a car. I mean, obviously, Billy is still, even though up in the middle of this circuit, the speeds are relatively low, you can very quickly and easily lose a car, $400,000 biff just like that if you have a big enough shunt. So, and it's very dangerous if you've got an inconsistent pedal. Here's Stevie Richards, who's been anything but inconsistent in this championship. He has continued to just belt away at it as he did in the beginning of last year's championship, and he'll be in good shape points-wise. And he's avoiding a lot of the nonsense that's been going on in and around him. I haven't done any quick maths on this yet. It takes a little time for this race to shake out before Noski, Longhurst and others take their pit stop, but one thing's for sure, Stephen Richards is going to be in amongst it when you count up the numbers.
He's been making small changes to the car all weekend, gradually over session to session, becoming more and more happy with this car for the race. And that was borne out yesterday in a pretty solid result. A lot of chaos going on around him. But he did mention very hot cabin temperature this weekend, and there's no doubt standing out in that Hidden Valley sunshine does really pump up the degrees. It was quite overcast the first couple of days when everyone was settling in here.
We had something like 2 metres of rain in the wet season, and the wet season's kind of strung on a bit here this year. And those of you that were with us in our telecast here last year remember that the cars, when they went off the road, were setting fire to the outfield. It's all green and lush this year. While we've got a moment, must also send our best wishes to the father of Kim and Bradley Jones. Old Phil Jones had a bit of an oil pump failure, a problem with the heart in the last week, and I know he's sitting there watching in hospital, and we wish you all the best. Phil, there's one of your boys, John Bauer, in the background, and the team want to know that they're thinking of you, and we hope all is well. Now, Murphy's got out of jail here a little bit, Bill, because you pointed out quite right that just the way things have gone with people running into each other.
They are behind the position.
They've obviously found a little bit of speed in this car, and he's currently showing position 7. Wills is in for service.
That'll lift Murph up another spot.
Noski, Longhurst, Morris.
And it's shades of Eastern Creek now, isn't it, where Murph got out of jail there due to the rain. And a bit of carnage has helped him here, among other things.
Well, it just underlines the reality of the way the championship at the moment, and that is, don't give up. Just keep pressing on, refine your car, continue to try and soldier on for a result, and you cannot afford mistakes. I think.
Having said that, he's 4.6 seconds behind the 6th placed Stephen Richards. Bit of a buffer there on Craig Lowndes, but that'll be an interesting point to watch. Lowndes 2.7 seconds. There he is right now. So just how much... Oh, we've had a problem here with Radicic. He's been turned around, and this is a risky business. Brad Jones coming up in the background, Ingle behind him as well. Is it Tander or McConville he was with there at the time? Tander. So we're cautious because there's so much going on. This field has been shaken up quite a bit, and there's still 2 cars out there yet to make their first stop, Longhurst and Morris. So track position can be a bit awkward to bank on at the moment. Let's have another look. Tander just, and right behind him there.
Yeah, so this is exiting the turn 5 hairpin. Paul was on the outside. Tander was underneath him, but moving back to the right to assume the race line, and he's whipped across the front of the car, and it's turned them both around.
Yes, well, Campbell Little will be looking upon this race with great interest. He's had his hands full since changing teams, but at the moment it's Longhurst ahead of Morris. That's the actual track position. And we're looking now further down at the battle between Mark Scaife and Paul Wheel, and Wheel is really giving him a caning. We'll be back with more after this. This is the battle for 9th place. It's a beauty. Paul Wheel all over the back of Mark Scaife, and Mark Winterbottom buying into this argument as well. In fact, Wheel goes through. Winterbottom has a good look, but doesn't get much beyond the rear wheels. Incidentally, Mark Scaife did have the record for the most number of races won here at Hidden Valley, which was 6. He was 1 ahead of Russell Ingle until yesterday. They're now tied. Made a few changes to his car from New Zealand, but not too much, and the engine's the same. The only driver to start on pole here more than once, and each time he did that, Ambrose beat him, and this year looks like someone else is going to beat him.
Scaife's complaining of the car being out of balance. It's oversteering quite noticeably, the rear of the car disconnecting pretty easily, and he's sliding around.
This is a great battle here. Sorry, Neil. Rick and Todd have been trading sector times almost exactly. It's been a terrific contest between the brothers from 2 different teams, and Stephen Richards just patiently watching the action as they come up upon lapped traffic here, and that could be a factor as well. Let's hear from Darryl.
Yeah, Billy, I just had a talk to Rob Crawford down here with the Team Kmart. Murph's up the pointy end of the field, which he struggled all weekend. I said, what's the change in the car from the warm-up? He said, well, we've done a minimal change on the spring rate front and rear, but obviously it's made a big difference and probably mentally given Murph some serious confidence as well.
We're riding with Murph here, and he is now 5.5 seconds behind Stephen Richards. And he's losing time to Craig Lowndes in 6th position, so
Longhurst has now taken the opportunity for his pit stop. So Kelly leads, that is Rick from his brother Todd, Stephen Richards, Greg Murphy. Craig Lowndes has the first Ford, then John Bow, Jason Bargwana.
The top 3 cars are close. Paul Wheel there. This is 8th place, ahead of Scaife, Winterbottom. This is a good bit of experience for young Winterbottom here. First bout at Hidden Valley, and now battling with one of the great races. And that's your top 3. Greg.
Billy, most of the engineers are calling for their drivers, as Neil mentioned, down the front straight to pull clear of lap traffic, or anyone if they're in the tow, try and get some nice clean air. They're worried about temperature, engine temperature at the moment. And Matthew Crawford, the crew chief for Todd Kelly's car, was on the radio too just a couple of laps ago, just warned him to keep an eye on the engine temperature in car 22.
2.6 kilometre circuit, so lap traffic obviously is going to become a problem. Great variety in pit stop strategy. We've had a few cars spend a fair bit of time in the pits too.
So possibility here of another race win for Rick Kelly. And just on that subject of engine temperature, if you're Todd Kelly, for example, at the moment, Bill, on a day like today, it wouldn't be uncommon for the water temperature to rise anywhere between 10 and 20 degrees C, just because of the turbulent hot air emanating from the back of the car.
There's Wheel. He's put some time between himself and Scaife, who's under pressure from Winterbottom. Actually, track is behind them, but that's not his true track position. He's a lap down.
Don't forget we've got Formula One tonight, and if you haven't caught up with the news, interesting qualifying session last night from Monaco, one of the most exciting venues the circus travels to year on year. Renault taking pole position with Jarno Trulli, Michelin tyres. Michael Schumacher has qualified 4th. Ralf Schumacher was actually 2nd, but they did an engine change on that Williams BMW on Thursday, which means he takes a 10 grid position penalty. So starting alongside Trulli will be Jenson Button in the BAR Honda. Fernando Alonso 3rd. As I said, Michael Schumacher will be 4th in the Ferrari.
The window's closed on compulsory pit stops. We're on lap 25, and the race has settled a little bit. Still, the margins between these top 3 are very close. Murphy 5 seconds behind them, and Lowndes is now attacking him. He's right beside him, or behind him.
And just a quick plug, other international news, Billy. We obviously cover the Champ Cars. They're in Mexico this weekend, and Sebastian Bourdais has pole position there at Fundadora Park in Mexico at Monterrey.
He's a pretty good qualifier, Bourdais. That'll be a very interesting race.
On board with Lowndes. Position 5, encouraging for Lowndes and FPR. He was quick here in the opening session on Friday and struggled a little bit yesterday in both the race and in qualifying, but has done a great job here today and is in reasonable shape. So it's both the Kelly brothers, 1 and 2, then Richards, Murphy, Lowndes is 5th.
remaining, mate. Doing a fantastic job. Keep it up.
I was going to say, Neil, no matter what happens here in this battle between Lowndes and Murphy, they've both really saved what could have been a pretty awful situation this weekend, haven't they? The cars have not been going too well.
Both Lowndes and Murphy are the 2 quickest cars on the track at the moment. 11.4 for both of them on the last lap, whereas both Kelly brothers are in the 11.7s.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Just paid a visit to the FBR garage, guys, and had a word to the team down here. They said compared to yesterday's race, they've made very small adjustments to this car, just finite adjustments to improve it. But it's the organic material, that's the word that they used at the Eastern Creek round, that's doing a good job at the moment. Pit stop not too bad, around 10.2 seconds, but Craig did make a gain in that.
It's a John Russell favourite term, the organic component of the car. It's a long way of describing the driver, but Craig always tends to go well at this racetrack. He enjoys it, and his style of driving is well suited to the layout here, and he is apparently going to be the first Ford home. John Bowers in 6th position, so he's recovered a bit from a frustrating qualifying. Bargwana, Paul Wheel is next, Scaife is 9th, and Todd Kelly just having a look at his brother down towards turn 1 and continues to search for cool air. Now that's almost a silly thing to say in this environment. There's not an awful lot of that stuff around except in commentary boxes, but
I don't know about that either.
hot air in here from time to time. Further outside the top 10, it's Ingle, Baird, Seaton, Ambrose, Brad Jones, then Dumbrell, Radisish, McConville, Simon Wills and Garth Tanner. That's the top 20.
It's been an extraordinary round already. Talking to the drivers, they were all talking about qualifying well because it's not easy to pass here, and there are 3 short races, and it's no one's won from pole here though. So for all the agony about getting up the front, it doesn't always bear out that way. 4 different winners in 6 rounds here at Hidden Valley. Remember that, and we've had 7 different race winners. 5 laps to go. And the race leader is Rick Kelly, Neil.
Yes, a bit of drama for Todd Kelly. He's got a fuel pressure alarm flashing on his dash at the moment, and it's right at the critical phase of the race where he's putting a bit of pressure on his brother, and he's in turn under pressure from Stephen Richards.
Both pumps, mate. Switch to both pumps.
On for the reserve pump.
Now some interesting battles here. Murphy under pressure from Lowndes. That's your top 3. They've been close for a long time, and I mentioned earlier the 2 Kellys trading sector times. It's been that close, and of course Richo wouldn't be far behind them. Incidentally, Richo, if he stays in this position, will yield 116 points for the 2 races so far, and that'll be enough to lift him to the championship lead on my very, very rough and quick calculations, although Rick Kelly with a couple points more will not be able to pass him, so it's very, very tight.
Lowndes is really applying pressure into the back of Murphy, and looks like he has a whisker more car speed. Incidentally, Barry Ryan's engineering Stevie Richards' car this weekend, and Steve Henderson's gone on to Paul Rumbrell's car. His Lowndes, pretty aggressive, sort of these two following in each other's wheel tracks here, and see the amount of flutter on the rear of the bonnet on the FPR Ford there, just from the air that's being kicked up by the Commodore in front. Look, Lowndes has got some mid-corner speed that Murphy doesn't have.
Just kissing the back of the Commodore.
Bowes lurking there in 6th at the moment as well. You can see that the green boxes indicate that Lowndes has got a whisker of pace on Murphy at the moment in this critical late phase.
It was back to school day last week, and Craig Lowndes went back to Diamond Creek Tech, which is actually now called Diamond Valley Secondary College. So he showed a few of the youngsters where you can finish up if you play your cards right, or in this case your cars right, as we see 2 cars off the track.
Tander for the 2nd time in this event finds the grass. Not sure why.
Is the car okay?
And
yeah, mate,
Simon
rear
Wills.
impact, full on rear impact.
There you go.
Top 3 again. A couple of other interesting battles further down the order. Marcos Ambrose 14th after that drive-through penalty. He's attacking Glenn Seaton. There's nothing in that. And a little bit further up the track, Russell Ingall in 11th place. Don't forget, won the first race. He's 2 seconds behind Mark Winterbottom. So not a good chance of improving position there.
These guys have now blown out into the low 12s. 12.3 for both the Kellys, 12.2 for Richards, 12.3 for Murphy. The fastest man in this sort of leading gang at the moment is Jason Bargwana, 11.9. Darryl.
Yeah, Neil, just had a quick chat to Jeff Gretsch about Todd's car. They had switched to both fuel pumps just as a safety precautionary. They were having maybe a little bit of surge there, but he said it could be a temperature issue. But he's in the sandwich with Richo all over the back of him right now.
It's not uncommon for cars to get a fuel vaporisation problem here because of the heat, Darryl. And it's the teams work hard, especially hard in the area of making sure they monitor fuel pressure and try and keep the fuel feed to the engine as cool as possible so they don't get a vaporisation problem.
Ambrose looking for some points here, courtesy of Glenn Seaton. And there's his teammate just ahead of him on the track, Russell Ingall. So we might see the teammates coming together again soon if Ambrose can get past him, but only 2 laps left to do it. This race has certainly plateaued out after a flurry of activity in the first 2/3. It's settled down quite a bit. Don't forget, 1 more race at the same distance still to come.
Last lap through Paul Wheel, 11.4 to make him quite quick. He's in 8th position at the moment. Craig Baird slowing down for some reason. The team Kiwi Holden at the top end of the circuit. No obvious problem there. A little bit of damage around the front. Back with Marcus coming out of turn 1. This is great through this section of track here, through 2 and 3. A little bump just upsets the cars. He's not really making a lot of ground on Glenn Seaton at the moment. He's the battle 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Rick's hanging on at the moment. Last time through it was 0.5 of a second between the brothers.
They've been pretty much in single file though, haven't they, Neil? No one's done anything really radical.
Nobody really has any great speed advantage. That's why the cars...
Last lap, fuel pumps to both.
There's that stricken car. So it's Rick from Todd, then Richards, Murphy, Lowndes, right behind Murphy.
They've decided to, whatever Craig's problem is, just leave him out there and try and finish. Ooh, someone's having a big problem in the background there. It's one of the Team Dynamic cars, and it's Dale Reed. The tyres protesting in the background.
Plenty of runoff there, thankfully.
Turn 4.
And he rejoins at an awkward spot. That was the 3 guys at the front of the field, so it would have been a nightmare if Dale had have got himself involved in that little group. There's the gap to Murphy and Lowndes.
John Bowes getting closer to that group as well.
His lap times have been pretty good too. He's been in the 11s.
He's only 1 second adrift from those guys, so he's chipped away. These two have probably slowed each other fractionally in their battle. But here we are, 2 corners to run now for Rick Kelly as he finds the checkered flag first again this season.
I don't know if we'll see the same thing we saw on the last corner yesterday. We don't. So it'll just be a straight out sprint to the line, and Rick Kelly is holding Todd Kelly.
Absolutely fantastic drive, position 1.
The race win to the younger of the brothers.
Quite good, very well done.
Stephen Richards third, Greg Murphy holds off Craig Lowndes, John Bowe, Jason Bargwanna, Paul Wheel and Mark Scaife up to 9th. Mark Winterbottom making up the top 10. Good value for the rookie. Russell Ingall right behind him, and Glenn Seaton, Marcos Ambrose.
Looking reasonable for the start of the next one. Good effort, mate.
And the next one will be a very interesting race indeed. Stephen Richards gets to the championship lead here. So he's looking a lot like Jason Bright did last season. Running around consistently. Reeling in the points. And another good save from Lowndes and Murphy. But Rick Kelly is the race winner, and he is really emerging as a major player in 2004 following that great victory at Eastern Creek. He's proving today that he can do it in the dry as well. Solid result indeed for Kmart Racing. They don't always come to the track in great shape, but they somehow find a way to perform on race day. So terrific work. And there's no doubt that the pace was pretty good in the conditions we saw today for race 2. And I'll just confirm there the points differential. Richards leading Ambrose in the championship by 12 points now, with another 12 points to Rick Kelly and 13 points to Greg Murphy. Big gap then to Jason Bright, although he's made up a little bit of ground. He was 75 off the pace. He's a little bit closer than that now. Well, Todd Kelly may have amassed more points than anyone else so far this weekend, but his brother Rick is the man who won race 2 and is very well positioned to take the overall points anyway if he can have a good result in the final race. A great battle looming here. Stephen Richards is in the picture as well. Marcos Ambrose is not far out of it as we have a look at the championship points after the 2 races. Richo has jumped back over Marcus. They've been having a ding-dong battle since Adelaide, haven't they, in the overall points position. Kelly that's Rick, has quietly slipped up to 3rd now. Murphy's still battling away. Bit of a gap there to Jason Bright. And then we have another gap, significant one, to Russell Ingall. And from there on down, a lot of drivers in the 400-point marker, and probably wishing that we're in last year's situation where you're able to drop your worst round.
Toward the end there, though, the car seemed to have maybe a little bit of an edge on Murph, just difficult to find the right passing opportunity.
It is. Our car's very strong into corners and through corners, and we're lacking a little bit of power down on the exit and probably a little bit of horsepower, but really we're doing the best with what we've got. The car, I've got to say, has been very consistent. We rolled off a couple of low 11s from virtually, I think, about lap 8 or so, and then right through to the race. And Bowie was very generous. I know Bowie can be one of the hardest guys to pass. He was very generous. Thanks JB. And I put my head down and really tried to catch Murph and put him under as much pressure as I could, which I did. Credit, he made a few little mistakes, but nothing major for me to get past.
Nice to see you smiling.
Thanks.
Russ, I think the biggest thing you would have been worried about is getting to the first corner first off the start, but then you got a hit from behind.
Yeah, a bit of a shame. Marcus got hit up the backside. He reckons he thought Bridie might have touched him up. I don't know who it was, so we can't say Bridie for sure. But anyway, it's a bit of an old school trick. Hit the car in front, he hits the one in front of him, and around everything goes. So, but mate, looks like the fun and games have begun.
Motorsport, you can go from winning one day to the back of the field on the next.
Well, one thing about V8 Supercars, you can always count that you'll never get 2 easy runs. I had an easy run yesterday, hardly got one then, but look, we had a few brake problems as well. We had a brake fade, speared off, and it still got back up to 11. So, you know, we've got plenty of car speed, running the same pace as the front runners, if not a bit quicker. So, mate, we'll have a bit of fun and games in the next one.
All the best.
Yeah.
Gonna need a gap filler. Gonna need a puddle sucker too. Might also need a Jenny.
And another Sanger.
Whatever you need, Coates Hire has a million pieces of equipment. Call 13 15 52.